Good morning. Welcome to the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I'm so glad to welcome you who are here in person or are here online or maybe watching from the library or the parlor. So great to see you all this morning. I'm thinking about some of the mentors I've had in life this morning. I came in this morning, several people said, "Really? You're going to tell us how we can live forever?" Woo! Sort of, kinda. I'm curious. How many of you, right now, right off the spot, could name the last 5 Best Actress for the Academy Awards? Not so many, right. How many of you could name the last 5? Well, maybe Jerry could. How many of you could name, so that's one, how many of you could name the last 5 Nobel Prize winners for literature? Jerry could. Thank you. Cool. Excellent. There's one of us here. Most of us can't. I couldn't do it. First time I heard this. How many of you could name 5 teachers who were really important in your life? How many of you could name 3 friends who changed your life? I think there's a reason for that. It took me, I think, maybe a little longer to learn why that is. And it has a lot to do with what it means to have friendships, especially friendships across the generations. And it's such a joy and a privilege to be with you here this morning in a place of many generations, in a place that seeks to nurture people of all ages and to nurture relationships in so many different ways. Good morning and welcome to the fellowship.
Good morning, everyone. You might want to silence your cell phone. Now is a good time. Welcome, friends, old friends, new friends, friends yet to be. I'm grateful, and I hope all of you are grateful to be in this space, in community, together this morning. I'm Jean Kraft. I'm currently on the board as the board member for social justice and equity. And welcome to the service. We are a spiritual community that appreciates the importance of the practice of appreciation and acceptance. We look for ways to empower each other in spiritual growth, supporting each other through our journeys of birth, childhood, youth, and adulthood. Although being a pediatrician, childhood is like number 1 for me. Being in Sunday worship together is one way that we learn who we are together and as individuals. Look around the room, see somebody that maybe you didn't come with, and just give them a little nod of hello. Glad to be in this space with all of us. Worship is for us a time when we share in the spiritual practice of listening. In this time of worship, as we are always learning to listen, we understand that if you need to leave to have an important conversation or to help somebody with a need, feel free to do that. If you are a person who gets overwhelmed by the sound within this space, our parlor is a very quiet room to listen to the service, and there's a monitor there. You can do that. And if you are in a position where you need to talk during the service but also want to watch the service, the library is the perfect place for you. In the library, we do ask that you not bring any food in there. We do have people in the fellowship who have a variety of allergies, and it also is full of upholstered furniture, and food plus upholstered furniture sometimes is not a good combination. If anyone with children who are children have any questions about religious education, Nick is always happy to have a conversation about that. And if you sing or like me, I think every artist needs a great audience. So I am a great audience for our choir, but if you want to become more than just a great audience, please see our choir director, Michael, who's sitting there at the piano. Our AV director is Alex West. So if you have either questions about how the AV system works, want to get involved, or just want to say thank you for making this complex system work as well as you do, Alex is at the back of the room. Our congregational administrator, Katie, is not here on Sundays generally, but during the week you'll find her in the office, and she, grateful to have her, she does amazing work. And I do also just want to briefly call out Jake, who does a lot of work in the mornings, getting things set up, making people feel welcome, and making sure that every single person has an order of service so that they know what to expect. And of course, Reverend Joel Miller, who is our interim minister, who has done a huge amount of work with the fellowship over the last couple of years, helping us understand ourselves better. We do have a lot of announcements that are on the back of the order of service right here. If you flip it over, you'll see there's a lot of stuff going on. There's also stuff available on the website. I do want to call out just a couple of things. One is a super fun thing. Nick is hosting a movie matinee this afternoon, sort of an old-fashioned gather in the space and watch it on the big screen kind of experience. I have no idea what the movie is.
Wonka, the new one.
Wonka. Oh, the new Wonka. That sounds fun. Oh, right, because there's sort of a candy theme along with it. On a more serious note, we know that a lot of people have a lot of questions about what's going on in the fellowship, and a lot of excitement building around the fact that in just about a month from now, we're going to have a candidating week with hopefully a fantastic person that our wonderful search committee has identified as perhaps the person to lead the fellowship going forward as our new settled minister. So we are going to have an informational meeting next Sunday. Not next Sunday. Is it next Sunday? Yes. At 12:30, and it's hosted by the Board of Trustees. And it's going to allow everyone to hear in more detail sort of how we are going into the whole new minister thing. So it's going to have updates related to plans for finances, for congregational communications. The board has been doing a lot of work around that. And for plans for next fall's religious education programming. We are trying as a board to respond to as many requests as we can, as fast as we can about things, but we know that there are still a lot of questions that people have. We know that there are also concerns, and next Sunday we'll have an opportunity to gather together to get a better handle on exactly what's going on. There will be a light lunch available, which is always a big attraction for these kind of things. We can't expect you to spend Sunday morning here and then hang around for an afternoon meeting without sustenance. So that will be available as well, and all are welcome. So looking forward to seeing you next Sunday.
These are the milestones and passages forms and the gratitude forms. You can fill this out anytime, and if for some reason you haven't had a chance yet and you want to fill one out, they're actually on the back table next to the orders of service. Just come on up and hand it to me. Even if I'm up here, I would like to share it if you would like to share it with your congregation. Let us now share in the lighting of our chalice and our morning affirmation. Love is the spirit of this fellowship and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Please stand in body or spirit if you wish.
Teach our spirits not to fear. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning year. Places of the season, and the summer shadows near. Here among us, flowers twilight, flowers sunny gray. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning
Can I have any of the kids come up? Anyone who's watching in the library, now's the time to run in here. Charlotte, my own. Come on in. Come on up, guys. Thank you for being in here. So, I have a question for you. Now, I want you to ignore your parents right now. Don't look at them. Look at me. Do you think your parents know all about how to raise you guys? They do? No, you said no. You said no. I do? Oh, look at that. I do. I don't. No. Do they sometimes say, I don't know what to do with you? Yes. Yeah? Yeah. I definitely say that about Alice sometimes, right? Yeah. Having kids is very hard. You know why? No one teaches us really what to do with you guys, and you're all so unique and different. That's, you can read a book about how to raise a kid, but I don't know how you guys are all, how Parker's going to be, how you guys are all going to grow up, right? It's really hard. So how do you think we learn? First, we make a lot of mistakes, we as parents, right? All these people out here are parents, they all made a lot of mistakes with their children. Y'all did. It's okay. We got through it, right? We do it together. That's how it works. You know the other way we figure it out? Well, I didn't know. Here's how I'll tell you a story. When I was a little kid, like your age, we went to a church, and we sat in the front row all the time, and we would play on the steps, and our minister would come and sit down here with us during this time. And it was really cool, and we had a lot of fun, and we felt welcome there. And behind us sat this old couple named Frank Frank was the gentleman, the gentleman of the thing, because I knew because he talked to me all the time. And he was also an electrician. And he taught me how to wire things. And I still know how to fix electrical problems in my house because this old guy taught me about circuits in my church. Now, that was really cool. I had a lot of people in my church who did that, and I didn't really understand how important that was to my whole family until one time, my dad, he was good at, what does he help you with math-wise, Alice? What's the thing he helps you the most with? Homework. We have what, homework? Math? Right? My dad was an accountant. That means he just counts numbers all day. If you guys like math, you guys can be accountants. If you don't like math, don't be accountants. All they do is add and subtract things. It's a lot. My brother also is an accountant. And he was an accountant. And so what happens in churches when you're an accountant, you get put on the finance committee. And so my dad was on the finance committee, and it came time where they ask for money every year, right? They ask, we'll do it in a little bit. We'll say, because we don't charge you guys for your programs, we rely on the generous donations of others. And so at some point we asked for money. And that year they said, we're going to ask for money, and we want to hear from different people. And they said, Joe, that's my dad's name, can you go up there and talk? And my dad's like, I don't like talking in front of people. They're like, yeah, but they like to hear you, and your kids are all over the place. They're running up on here. I have 5 brothers and sisters. We like climb up on the things. You think it's noisy in here. You should have heard my family in there. Maybe that's why I don't mind it as much. And so we were crazy. So my dad got up there, and it was like, oh, cool, Dad's going to talk, because we all were involved. My mom was on the board, and they always talked, but Dad never talked. And Dad got talked there, and he said very simple. He said, I started coming to this church because I had some kids that I didn't know what to do with. I was the oldest, and my brother Dan. I was busy getting kicked out of preschool. My brother Dan didn't talk until later. And he said, I don't know what to do, and I needed a place to help me raise my kids, and that's why I came here. And so that's what we do in this community, right? We have all these wonderful people. Now, I want you to stand up. I want you to look out there. Now, see all those people out there? Now, can you see your parents? Say hi to your parents. Can you see any of your teachers or people who work directly with you at the fellowship, right? Your Sunday school, your RA teachers and stuff, you say hi to them. Now, do you see anyone else out there that you have maybe said hi to in the Great Hall or has smiled at you? Have you seen any of those people? Oh, we got to do a little bit better about that. Because here's the deal. All of these people out here are here to help your parents. They're not here to replace your parents. They're not here to do it. But they're here to help us, and they're here to help you because ultimately, at the fellowship, we want you guys to grow into bigger, stronger, and more awesome kids. Right? Yeah, okay. And yeah, so all these people, that's what they're here for, right? And so when they are in worship, we spend time with them because we learn from them. We watch. So if you guys don't know what's happening in the service later, like why is everyone being quiet or why is everyone singing? And your parents might not know because they might not know. Look at some of these folks who've been around for a while. They know. Watch them. They'll show you how it works. Okay? That's good. Keep an eye on the parents around you. And grown-ups, remember, your actions in here are always being watched because I don't actually need to remind them to watch you. Kids are always paying attention. All right? Sound good? All right. Let's go down. Okay.
Milestones, passages, gratitudes. Many are brought here in our hearts and shared in presence, or perhaps with a quiet conversation during coffee hour, or maybe even on the telephone or by email later in the week. But some of them we share with each other in this moment. Perhaps it's a significant milestone, that is a significant event or significant change, a passage for us, or perhaps it's a gratitude that's just so important that it's not fully appreciated unless it's shared with the people we share this spiritual journey with. Steve Parker shares a milestone. Please light a candle for my friend and former neighbor, Robert Zufall, who passed away last weekend at the age of 99. Dr. Bob began providing volunteer health services in borrowed church space to serve people in Dover who needed that extra help. These days, the Zufall Health Clinics offer free or affordable care to over 5,000 New Jersey residents every year in 7 clinics. 50,000, thank you. It does say 50, you wrote it right. I will remember Bob for the many things, including his rule of thumb test for evaluating possible actions. Will it increase the net well-being of all human souls? Mary Lou McGinnis and David Horst share that Tom McGinnis is in the Morristown Medical Center for lung infection and complications from heart disease. Please keep Tom and his family in your thoughts and prayers. Cards are appreciated. You can write to him at the Morristown Medical Center, Tom McGinnis, Gagnon, Building 4, room 429. And I have the address here if you need it later. Diane Marks shares that Barbara Pekka is recovering at home after a hip replacement. Get well cards and calls are appreciated. I don't have the address here, but happy to give it to you after the service. Maureen Dempsey shares also a milestone. My mother, Jean Dempsey, passed away this week at the age of 97. We will forever miss her love, her kisses, and her laughter, but we are so grateful with the time we had with her. Please keep Maureen and her family also in your thoughts or your prayers. I'm sure cards would be welcome. And 2 gratitudes. Julie and Bob Peterson are grateful for Ann Gaynor, Pat De La Fuente, and Jerry and Marty Weinstein. And a gratitude from Nick Walworth for the lay pastoral care team, their invitation to discuss children's spirituality and how they can support our children and our RE program last Thursday. There are so many more gratitudes and milestones that are with us. Let us be open to all that are with us here this morning and through the days and weeks to come. I invite you now into a spirit of contemplation or prayer or meditation as is best for you. I invite you to sit comfortably, remember to breathe, and if it is comfortable for you, place your feet on the floor and feel the earth beneath this very floor. We speak to something greater than ourselves. God, Goddess, Spirit of life, the eternal, Allah. Adonai, by so many names, or perhaps nameless, or no need to name. Yet we speak to this mysterious thread that connects us, one to the other, one to community, and to the universe. Let us listen to the deep wisdom at the center of each of our beings. Within us, the yearning of life, our lives, all lives. The yearning to connect more deeply with one another. To hear each other more keenly. To see each other's joys and sorrows and know they are also our own. Yearn to know that we are not alone. And when we create solitude for ourselves, community and this yearning still call to us, and community awaits. And out of this, we are here, a religious community. May we help each other to proclaim the possibilities of love that we see, to create the community we aspire to be, to worship what is beautiful and worthy in our lives, to teach the truth as we know it, and to serve with justice in all the ways we can. And though our yearning may never be fully fulfilled, let that yearning find its moments, our lives fulfilled in each other. And now let us be silent together for a moment. For all these yearnings, or the great yearning that brings us together, we say thanks. Amen. So be it. Blessed be.
Good morning, everybody. As you can see, today's theme for the service and both the music are generations and how to raise our youth or those younger than us. The songs deal with that generally, but particularly there are verses, and I meant to read for the first song we did, the third verse in particular. Mother of the generations, in whose love all life is worth, everlasting celebrations, bring our labors safe to birth. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning earth. And this song, When I'm Frightened, kind of deals with that whole, that what that said in that verse there is this. It's an older generation, just someone speaking to the generation younger than them, and then them talking back, when I am frightened, when I need help, will you help me? And how important that is to guide. Like Joel said, we can all remember the names exactly and how people treat us exactly, who were helpful to us, but all the famous names just come and go in our mind. Please stand if you'd like.
And now a reading. I believe this is from Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Oui. So I'm going to do it in French? Not really. I don't speak French, so neither of us would understand it. In a house which becomes a home, one hands down and another takes up the heritage of mind and heart, laughter and tears, musings and deeds. Love, like a carefully loaded ship, crosses the gulf between the generations. Therefore, we do not neglect the ceremonies of our passage. When we wed, when we die, when we are blessed with a child, ours or neighbors or friends, I added that part, when we depart and when we return, when we plant and when we harvest. Let us bring up our children. It is not the place of some official to hand them their heritage. If others impart to our children our knowledge and ideals, they will lose all of us that is wordless and full of wonder. Let us build memories in our children, lest they drag out joyless lives, lest they allow treasures to be lost because they have not been given the key. We live not by things, but by the meaning of things. It is needful to transmit the passwords from generation to generation. And now we will be collecting our offertory as we do every week. And as every week, we split the generous donations between the works of our own fellowship and the works of the greater community through our partners. Today, that split, the 50%, will go to the Jersey Battered Women's Shelter, which provides safety, support, and solutions for women and children living in difficult situations. You can donate via text to give number, which is 73256, and put in the keyword MUF followed by the dollar amount. Or you can give online whenever you'd like, as often as you like, at muff.org/give, and you select Sunday offering on the menu. And now I will turn it over to our choir.
Good morning, everybody. I know you just heard that beautiful reading, but I just wanted to read a quick part of it again to show you, and then I'll read the text for our anthem this morning. From that reading, from generation to generation, it starts, "In a house which becomes a home, one hands down and another takes up the heritage of mind and heart." And then towards the end, it said, "Let us build memories in our children. And we live not by things, but by the meanings of things. It is needful to transmit the passwords from generation to generation." Our choral anthem today sets a poem that's a Japanese poem, and it's anonymous. It's not known who the author is, but I will read the English translation. "In this ancient house, paved with 100 stones, ferns grow in the eaves. But numerous as they are, my old memories are more." So I think that says it all. Yeah, wonderful. And we will be singing in the English and the Japanese. Sorry, one last thing. These are called finger cymbals. I thought I'd mention them before I play. They have been around I mean, really forever. They've been they're such an old instrument. They are an Eastern instrument, although like many Eastern instruments, they have made their way into ensembles and orchestras of our Western culture for about 120 years since the turn of the 20th century. And they're just attached by a string and they're free floating to keep a resonance, and you simply play them like that, and you can usually have them trade places because the reverberations don't interrupt each other, and it gives this sort of vibrato sense, just like what the human voice or a string player does. Okay, now we'll collect our offering. Sorry.
I used the word elder in a sermon a couple of months ago. After the service, there were a handful of people that told me they very much dislike that word, elder. So I'm going to avoid the term. I'm thinking a lot I'm about to head into my mid-60s here. Birthday is not too far away, and I'm beginning to understand it might be useful. Medicare. Yeah, they're getting close, yeah. Medicare.
The gay 90s.
I'm hearing good things about being feisty when you're getting older, right? So forget this elder word. However, there is something about getting old. I think I would much rather get old than the alternative. So I'm not quite ready for Social Security yet. But I did read that when Congress established Social Security in 1935, the average woman lived to be 62, and the average man lived to be 58. Wow. My grandpa, he was born in 1892. He lived to be 96. My grandma lived to be 96. She was 62 when I was born. My grandpa was 68. They definitely got old. They were even elderly, and they would have laughed a little about that. They lived, even then, when they died, they had lived 25 years longer than the average American. Things have changed a lot since then. People are living a lot longer. I'm grateful that my grandparents were around so long in my life, and other elders who were important to me. When my grandparents were born in the 1800s, most people were young when their grandparents died. I got to hang out with my grandparents until my mid-20s. But what's really strange to me is that even now, as all of us are living longer, we're actually getting less time between the generations than we did in my grandparents' time. These days, there are fewer opportunities for new generations to hang out with older generations. Nick was telling me a story about being at the elementary school. There were a bunch of people in their 40s with a bunch of people who were somewhere between 6 and 11, and some teachers with a smattering of age ranges. New parents often live far away from their parents. And you know, the one thing, this is maybe a little bit more of a tangent than I should go on, but what is it about garage doors? It's a sign of the times that most new houses in America put front and center the garage door. It's the first thing you see when you drive in a new neighborhood. I have something bad I could say about that I won't say from the pulpit, but I will say it's the ugliest part of the house. What are they thinking? Shouldn't it be the door? Shouldn't be neighbors reaching out to neighbors? I had wonderful neighbors in the neighborhood I grew up with, where the garages were out of sight from the streets. Mr. Phipps, who would lean over the fence sometimes and chat with me and my brothers. And as an interim minister, I live in apartments, and I really had never lived in apartments at all in my life, but I've really found I love living in apartments. I meet all kinds of people I would never meet either in a Unitarian Universalist congregation or just in the usual places I go in life. One person I met who was a neighbor was my Baton Rouge neighbor from the 9th Ward of New Orleans. Sandra didn't need an alarm clock in the morning because when she woke up, she just started singing. Her beautiful singing was very loud. I woke up too. She sang beautifully, so it was a really great alarm clock as things go. And then one evening I heard loud, unhappy voices from Sandra's apartment. Her boyfriend was breaking up with her. She had some words for that. And she didn't sing for a week. We ran into each other again in the hallway about a week later. And she saw me, and she was really embarrassed because she knew I could hear her because I'd said, I'd love you to hear your singing. And she actually upped the volume when I told her that. I asked her how she was doing. Just looked at her like, I'm just your neighbor and I care about you. And she looked at me and knew I was really asking. And so I listened for a while as she told me how she was doing. Not so great in the moment. I was grateful, though, that she trusted me, and I was worthy of her trust, and grateful that it helped a little bit because she started singing again in the morning. Behind those garage doors, more and more of us are living past 80, living past even 90 years. There's some of us that are living past 100 years old. So I kind of find myself agreeing with those members here who came up to me and said, I don't know about elderly. I'm in my 80s and I'm still in midlife. And as it turns out, there are some experts that would agree with you on that. Elderly is what we take, if we ever want to take it, maybe in the last couple of weeks of life. All right, maybe a couple of years. But there remains this weird thing where there are so few places where Americans interact intergenerationally. The most likely place for a 12-year-old to make friends with a 75-year-old is going to be in a religious community, in a fellowship, a church, a synagogue, an ashram, a mosque, a temple. I was thinking about that story that Nick told. And what are we going to do with you? I was kind of one of those, what are we going to do with you kids myself? I was in 4th grade, and we were kind of doing a project. It was right before we got into the scientific method, but we were doing scientific methodologies, I guess. We had lots of interesting biology and things like that. We did scientific method in school. I've mentioned it before, but if you're new, my UU congregation taught science because you couldn't talk about science in the public school because it might talk about evolution or evolution, some of them would have said. My congregation would have none of that silliness, so. Being an ornery kid, I remember I was there with my friend Jeff, and there was the snack break we had in the classroom at that point. We weren't as worried about allergies back then, or not as aware we should have been. And I said, hey, I got to go to the bathroom. And Jeff said, I do too. And we did not have to go to the bathroom. Instead, we were kind of exploring around the building. What's it look like in this place, especially when the adults are busy in the service and the class is going on, but we're wandering around. There's nobody in the halls, but the building's full. This is cool. And then we started playing tag. Well, imagine that there's a wall right here, and here's the sanctuary. It's like folding doors to make a regular size sanctuary, and they would open up to make a bigger sanctuary for special holidays. It was not soundproof. I did not know that, nor did Jeff. And I'm going up and down the hall like that. The Reverend George Whitney, a stately, older Unitarian minister who was famous for having marched with Dr. King or having spent a month in prison, snuck into a prison and literally just to see what it was like so he could report on it to his congregation and actually the newspaper. He was a pretty amazing guy. Reverend Whitney stopped the sermon, opened the doors very quickly, and there Jeff and I were standing. He grabbed our shoulders, come with me, and took us to the office of the Director of Religious Education, and he said, deal with this. Mind you, he was in a robe, preaching tabs because we're Puritans. He was not pleased. And the DRE looked at us like, oh, this is not good. I thought I was in real trouble. I'd interrupted the whole service. The adults weren't pleased. But then Reverend Whitney called my mom up one day and said, we'd like to have your son over for lunch after the service next Sunday. Would that be all right? And my mom said, well, yes, that would be fine. And the Reverend Whitney and his wife, Doris Whitney, after the service, I waited and they went in the car. He had a ham radio in a car. He had this radio. He was a ham radio operator. I was fascinated. I'd never seen anything like it. Then we had lunch, and then he showed me his model railroad set. And I went to visit the Whitneys several times. I don't remember anything along the line of a lecture about when to run up the up and down the halls of the church building and not interrupting sanctuaries. But what I do remember are some really interesting conversations about their lives and about how you build model railroads. I loved that so much. I ended up building one for myself as a kid in my family's basement. They were important for me as a 9 and 10 and 11-year-old. And I can name the names, like more names that I can name of my church mentors. Nancy Lee was important. She came up to me after I was a young man and I'd led a service one Sunday, and she came up to me and she said, "Joel, have you ever thought about going into ministry?" I thought she was like joking with me, maybe even teasing me a little bit. She was serious. And there was Octavia Perrin, who was elderly. She was old. And I remembered her as a 20-year-old from when I was a 9-year-old, and she knew my name even then. She'd greet me with a smile every time she saw me. When I was ordained, she told me the story of how her only child, a son, had died his freshman year in college. She felt like she got to be a grandparent, she said, watching me grow up and seeing our beloved congregation send me into ministry the day I was ordained. I tried to work hard not to get too emotional. I miss them a lot. God, I miss them so much. I learned so much. One of the most important things I learned from them was the spiritual practice of listening. And that's something very large in some ways. Listening to myself, listening to my soul, listening to my people, listening to the world, listening to that yearning that calls me to connect. When my son started college, his sister, his mom, and I all took him to the university, and he was welcomed by the president of the university, along with the rest of the freshman class of 2013, by explaining the difference between fluid thinking and crystalline thinking, which my son thought was really cool. My son's a scientist. He likes that kind of thinking himself. And he explained fluid thinking is, for young adults, that amazing ability to assimilate many, many facts and then think new thoughts about what they've assimilated, what they've learned. Assimilating would be another word for learning. That's fluid thinking. And then he pointed out that in midlife, which is a large range, roughly 30-ish to maybe 89-ish, that's what I'm hoping for. People's thinking skills change. And there's a kind of thinking, a kind of knowing that scientists call crystalline thinking. And it comes with new skills. If we're lucky, we have this midpoint time in midlife when we have maybe a crisis, like a midlife crisis, or a yearning, something calls to us, something is changing for us. And we are, if we are intentional, able to understand ourselves better, to nurture relationships better, to understand our emotions more effectively. One of the things I've really noticed is that in my 60s, the experience of falling in love with my fiancée happened with the same exact intensity that it would have happened, that it did happen when I fell in love in my 20s. But what's different this time is that as I have this rush of emotion and joy, I can still keep my good judgment pretty easily, and I can continue to listen well. I was not so good at that in my 20s. So years ago, when I was studying the religions of the world, I kind of had an initial understanding of these kinds of stages of life because I encountered in theological school the Hindu concept of stages of life. There are 4 stages in this Hindu concept. Each is roughly like 25 years. The first one is learning, typically the first thing we do in our lives, but we can come back to any of the stages as I understand it. The second stage then is young adulthood, begins at young adulthood, and it's building home, building a family, building career, building wealth is sometimes the word that's used in Hinduism as it's describing this stage. And then there's a third stage. It's that second half of midlife. The third stage is a time for spiritual growth and for mentoring others. Sometimes gurus come to do their, ministries during this stage. And then the last stage of life is described in Hinduism as a time of renunciation, a time to let go of material worries and focus on the Hindu concept of liberation from things of the world. The word for it is moksha. I was glad, I've been grateful over the years to have learned something from this Hindu teaching. Not that I understand it well, but the decade of my 40s, for example, was a hard one. And typically the decade of the 40s is a hard one for folks. People are most depressed in their lives when they're in their 40s. And then something happens with that midlife change. But it's hard to do in American culture. If you ever gone to go to the Walgreens or the Hallmark card store and you look at the birthday cards for 50 and 60-year-olds, the cards are basically all about, well, too bad for you, plan your funeral now. Thing that comes to my mind is that line in a Monty Python movie, I'm not dead yet. There's a reason I've learned to watch for a midlife crisis when folks are in their late 40s. Children leaving home, we are where we are in careers and wealth and finances and status. It just is what it is. And that pressure in our culture to be hell-bent towards acquiring things and get status, be the subject of awards, suddenly we find it empty. We find at that crisis moment what the author of today's reading said. We live not by things, but by the meaning of things. I studied developmental psychology when I was in theological school. And it was striking to me that this concept of stages of life in Hinduism appears in science as well. And the best way to describe the before that midlife crisis and after midlife crisis is, I like the way one business executive described it. In my 20s, 30s, and 40s, I was my business card, or what I owned, or what others said about me. At 50, I began to ask this: what will survive me? So in this third stage of my life, this part of my midlife, that's the second half, where I have 25 more years than most of my ancestors ever dreamed of, I think first and foremost, I want to be somebody that dogs like. Right? And I hope when they do a memorial for me, that eulogies will talk about me as being filled with love and appreciation. I hope that congregations are grateful for my ministries. And I think all of us begin asking questions more like that after we've had a midlife crisis or a life of meaning crisis, which actually can happen any time in life for a child or a 100-year-old. I want to leave you with this. There's a reason most religious communities have a lot of members who are in their second half of midlife. It's because that's when we really begin to feel the yearning, that calling to be part of something greater than ourselves. It gets stronger as we get older. And we start asking questions like, how am I making a difference in the world? What have I learned about life? And what else can I be learning and then sharing? So, leave you with this. If you like just facts, a spiritual place is a great place to find friends to help us do this work. And statistically, folks who are a regular part of a religious community will live on average 10 years longer. So y'all come. But the last reason, I miss them terribly. Reverend George and Doris, Nancy Lee, Octavia, Ann and John Allen, Carol Brody, I just miss them terribly. I want to tell them about you. I want to tell them about the places I've been and the people I've seen, amazing congregations I've been lucky to serve. I would love to know what they'd tell me, what they'd say. And yet they're still with me. And through them, the people who mentored them are with me too. They live in me. And I've come to understand that in sharing the same way with others, especially those who are younger, this is the way I very well might just live forever.
This last hymn, I know I'm doing a lot of reading, but the second verse in particular fits with today, and especially with Joel's sermon, what he just said in 3:5-9. For youth shall pass and time is wise, and countless seasons turn. So day by day our years increase, until at last by life released, our spirits shine like stars. Our spirits shine like stars. Snaps for great text and great music. This is a wonderful marriage of text and music. I'm going to do this. If I had an organ here, what I'm going to do with my left hand is what my feet would be doing. It's a pedal. Yeah, so I know, as if I didn't take on enough this Sunday. But just to get that I've been wanting to do this for some time, and thank you to Alex and Tim for helping me set this up. It's been here when it was for Christmas Eve, but when it's here, I can use it as my left hand and do a little bit of both. It's only 2 verses, so if we say, I'll just start over and just do it on the piano. And because it's only 2 verses, I do have a 2x you can see on the bulletin. We're gonna do it twice, verse 1, 2, and then 1 and 2 again. Because like I said, it's so good and it's so short. I wanted to do it twice. You may stand if you'd like, yeah.
When we are gathered for a time in worship and in song, let none forget the joys and griefs that mark each path of life, and thus we are rich for those we love. We reach for those we love. For youth shall pass and time is wise, and countless seasons turn. So day by day our joys increase, until at last by life release, our spirits shine like stars. Our spirits shine.
beautiful spirits, let them shine for each other and for a world that needs to remember love and the possibility of joy and growth. Go in peace, be in peace. Let your light shine. Will we be here again? Go in peace.